So there is this show on television currently called 68 Whiskey, and it's a show about combat medics that are currently deployed to Afghanistan. And let's kind of talk about maybe how realistic or non-realistic it is. What's up, friends? Welcome to an all-new video. In this one, we're going to be checking out a TV show called 68 Whiskey that follows these combat medics in Afghanistan and talking about maybe what's not so realistic compared to real-life Army life. Now, the key thing I want to point out before we kind of dive into it is that I'm not trying to say that this makes the show bad or wrong or whatever, because some of the stuff, they don't need to be accurate. They don't care to be accurate. It doesn't make sense to be accurate because it doesn't make it entertaining to be completely accurate. So I'm not saying the show should be 100% accurate. There's going to be things that shouldn't be accurate for entertainment purposes anyways. But if you're watching this show and you're kind of curious how much of this stuff is accurate and how much is not accurate, then that's kind of what the idea of this kind of video is, to kind of point out things that aren't accurate, but not necessarily to say that they shouldn't have made this inaccurate or whatever. Now, I've seen a few episodes. I think it's okay. They actually got pretty bad reviews though on IMDb, I noticed. Over on IMDb, I noticed it's got a 4.4 for the ratings. I did happen to see that if you look at the demographic for it, it does pretty good with like people under 18. You get a little bit over 18. It's about, it's an okay show. And then you start getting into your people in the 30s and up, and that's when it starts to go downhill. So maybe some old school veterans maybe don't like the show. Maybe some of the younger generation does. I think it's an okay one. So I probably, kind of fall into the category of like a 5 or a 6 kind of a thing. It's not an amazing series. It's no generation kill or anything like that. But, it's probably like a 5 or 6 in my opinion. So we're gonna kind of go through, I'll react to some different scenes, maybe point out, why it's not realistic, and maybe elaborate a little bit. But like I said, don't take this as me criticizing the show as it should be realistic. Just for your curiosity, if you're wondering, how much of these things that are happening in the show is realistic to real world. Now, I'm not gonna show the first scene. The show immediately starts off with a sex scene. It doesn't show any nudity or anything like that, but there's, definitely some sounds. So if you're trying to watch this first episode, and you're in your room or whatever, let's say you live with your parents or whatever, or maybe your spouse is in another room or whatever, be aware there is going to be some pretty inappropriate sounds probably coming from your television as this show kind of kicks off. Now, as far as the realism with that, it happens. It's not supposed to. It's against the rules, while on a combat deployment to engage in sexual activities. But yeah, it does happen. As long as someone doesn't get caught, then I guess there's no repercussions. But if somehow someone was to get caught engaging in some kind of sexual activities, then yeah, they're going to get in trouble.
I'm not giving up.
Oh, shit. Something's wrong. I got less than 2,000 likes and it's been up almost 3 whole days.
Well, you're holding it upside down. Yeah, you make that AT4 look like a sewage pipe.
So right here, she gets like a notification. She apparently has a cell phone. You can have cell phones there. Probably the reliability, at least in my experience in Iraq, they're in Afghanistan, so I don't have experience being in Afghanistan, but in Iraq, coverage was horrible, So, I mean, maybe you could do something like that, but God, it's like running off of like really, really crappy cell phone service that maybe you might be able to get a web page to load or something. But all my experience being in Iraq, at least, you had really pretty crappy, cell coverage.
Good luck in the fight with Sasquatch.
Now, one of the big things I noticed in this series was that all of their medics had this giant patch above their name. I've never seen that. I'm not saying that it doesn't exist. Maybe it does with certain particular units, but I've never seen that. So that's new to me. I'm not too familiar with that. So that one seems a little bit weird.
Why can't we have movie night like every other base?
Now's not the time for second thoughts, my man. We stand to make a lot of cash here.
So they have like this MMA. Well, it's not really MMA. It's more like a bare-fisted almost boxing fight that they have going on the base and everything. Now, that would be pretty unrealistic. I have had times where we've had people box. They had full-on headgear and boxing gloves and took a lot of approval to make it happen. This would not be something that would be allowed. We got the staff sergeant here egging it on and everything like that. Sure, that might happen, but definitely if someone was to catch wind of this, hear about this or whatever, some people would be getting some pretty serious trouble for doing something like this, because this individual ends up with injuries on his face, that could affect his work abilities and everything, or, if they got more seriously injured, then that could affect things. So that's why you're not allowed to do this kind of things, even probably not in a combat zone. But yeah, you definitely wouldn't be able to do no bare-fisted or even just mild gloves kind of MMA or fighting like this. It would have to be pretty safe kind of a thing because you want to risk, goofing around or having a little bit of fun on a combat deployment that causes an injury to where you can't do your combat job.
I'm never gonna see odds like this again.
Yeah, so see, he's getting pretty busted up and everything like that, and people would be definitely asking questions as to what the hell happened, why you're all busted up. It would raise a lot of flags, and people that probably let this happen, like non-commissioned officers, would get a pretty big ass chewing for that. So also a key thing to note is this girl that the main character kind of guy was having sex with in the beginning of the episode is supposedly in a relationship with that civilian guy that the guy's fighting. It seems like a lot of people I've seen in other episodes know about their relationship. You shouldn't be engaging in kind of relationship in a combat zone. It's usually restricted, not allowed. If you're a married couple, then that's cool, but having a boyfriend-girlfriend kind of relationship while you're on a deployment is usually restricted, not allowed. So kind of a weird thing. Usually that wouldn't be a thing that'd be allowed. If it was done in secret, then maybe they can get away with it, but they pretty much have it pretty open, it seems like, in some of the episodes that I've seen. So that would not be a realistic thing in a combat zone to have a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship type of thing.
Thank God that's over.
That's us! We got your coordinates. You sit tight. We're coming to get you.
So then the episode gets into some medic stuff. They're going on 9-line Medevac. So these individuals are with the bird, and they're reacting to someone who needs assistance, needs to be evacuated, and these guys are on the bird to go and respond to this 9-line Medevac.
We got a lonely friendly in critical condition. How's the LZ looking? 9-line came in broken. That's all we know about it so far.
Now, this LZ has absolutely no security on it. They do actually kind of mention that earlier where the NCO was actually asking about, like, what does the security look like? And they say that the 9-line was kind of broken up and everything like that. But usually, like, a 9-line is called up by a convoy, multiple individuals. They secure the LZ and everything. There is absolutely no security, it seems like, going on at this LZ, but this could be like a special operations kind of situation where this individual needs to get evacuated out, and maybe they don't have enough people to really secure an LZ, and they just got to get that person out of there. So there could be some possible scenarios, but your most common one has usually the LZ surrounded, and then also you're going to see here in a little bit, like, the casualty is not really ready to be loaded onto the bird, where usually they try to have that casualty ready so they can hurry up, get them loaded to the bird, and get them the hell out of there. But there are some situations that maybe could be more realistic to this, but I feel like this one's a little bit more rare.
Isn't that?
Buckley, yeah, the kid with the Avengers logo tattooed on his back.
Let's make sure he lives long enough to regret it.
What the hell is he doing out here by himself?
Son of a bitch is running the side hustle.
Damn! Probably 20 grand worth of runs in that truck.
How you doing, kid?
So that kind of like explains it. He's off by himself. He's probably doing some kind of illegal stuff, some kind of side hustle, and isn't out with an official mission. So that's kind of why he's by himself, I guess, anyways. Just note that, in a real situation, if it was a legitimate 9-line Medevac, not some kind of like shady stuff that was happening where you required a Medevac, then usually you have like an LZ pretty well secured. You should anyways.
Now tell him only my mom speaks to me like that.
They're evacuating a civilian here that was injured in the local area. That can happen. A lot of times, you will still try to take care of the local populace. So there's an option, like when you're filling on 9-line Medevac, as far as if it's military, if it's civilian, if it's non-military but U.S., all that kind of stuff. So that can still happen, where they will possibly evacuate a local civilian to get them some help. Now, another thing to kind of note that I've seen in a lot of these episodes is they have a medic tab. There is no official medic tab. I don't know if this unit is supposed to be like, this unit wants to just simply be able to easily identify the people that are medics and non-medics or whatever, but for an individual who goes to medic training, there's not like an actual official tab for an individual to wear a medic tab, so that's just kind of an extra thing. Also, the patch, not a super familiar one, so I don't know if it's more like a reserve unit, National Guard unit, but it's not a unit that I've really seen as one of the really common ones. Not to say it doesn't exist, it's just not one of the really common units that I've ever seen.
Sergeant Smith.
Here, sir.
Sergeant Johnson.
Here, sir.
Private Petrocelli.
Here, sir.
Corporal Buckley. Corporal John Buckley.
Colonel Austin, Corporal John Buckley is no longer with us.
This is a thing they do. I don't think I've ever seen it in country being done. Usually it's something they do a bigger ceremony for back in the States after the deployment's over. But I mean, this could be just still done in States. But the thing I've heard, every time I've seen it with it, they do that where they have, you know, some designated people to call off their names and they respond. And then the person that was killed in action or killed in whatever type of situation happened, you know, they'll call off their name 3 times. First time, just simply like, you know, this one, Corporal Buckley, and then it'll be Corporal John Buckley. And then the third time, usually I've seen it, they do it where they do like the first, middle, and last name. And then I don't think they do anything afterwards. I think it just kind of ends. I don't remember anybody kind of having to speak up and say that that person's not with us anymore or anything like that. So that seemed a little bit different in the show. All the ones I've seen probably about 3, 4, probably, I don't know, something like that. And every time I've seen it, nobody has spoken up when the person that was deceased, you know, his name is called after 3 times. They just simply stop and then taps plays or something else kind of happens after that.
Freeze it! Huh!
Also, key thing to note, Petrocelli is wearing a 4th ID patch.
Now he's dead because I missed an exit one. And I can't get his blood out from under my goddamn fingernails.
Now they have like this really sweet little hangout area here. There are some places that have that. I think we kind of had one similar. I remember my second deployment, not as cool as this one is, but this wouldn't be like your common like live-in type of area. But if someone goes through the extra effort of like putting together some kind of cool hangout spot, I think you even see on the door at some point in this episode where it says medics only. So it must be like a cool like day room or, you know, hangout area for the medics only. But don't think that this is like a living room that everybody usually gets on a deployment. This is like a special thing that they have set up.
Hey! Foul! Don't argue with me! What? Get out of here. You're out of there.
Okay. It's gonna hurt just a little bit, all right? But it's good for you. It's okay, it's okay. You took it like a pro kid. You see right there.
So now in this one, they're kind of like trying to help out some kids and give them some vaccinations and everything like that. But you'll notice that it's on base. Like, I don't know how on earth these kids would have ended up on post. So that's a little off kind of a thing. You normally, you know, you don't allow civilians on post unless they have some kind of, you know, actual thing to be cleared to go on, to work on base or whatever. Somehow these kids are just hanging out, playing soccer, and they're giving them some vaccinations. So that part doesn't match up to anything that's normally a realistic type of scenario. So be aware about halfway into the episode, there's another sex scene. So that could be a second time that someone kind of gets a little curious as to what you're doing in the other room watching this episode.
It's okay.
No can do. I'm gonna have to report this to my relief.
So the other thing I don't understand that I haven't got about this episode is why is this guy from the 4th Infantry Division, because that's the patch that he's got on the left shoulder out of Fort Carson for the headquarters, where these guys have a different patch. So is that medical unit attached to the 4th ID, or is 4th ID attached to this medical unit, or is there individuals? I don't know. They don't really make that part clear. It's just kind of confusing. Typically you work together unless you have some kind of other units being attached to you, but they don't really make that clear. It's probably not really necessary to the story, but I've always kind of wondered what's this 4th Infantry guy and some of the other 4th Infantry soldiers I've seen doing with this other unit.
I have no idea why these people are so intent on killing each other. Pretty sure none of you have a fucking clue either.
So she's wasted and, you know, going off. She's pretty traumatized from earlier. There's a soldier that, you know, died under her care kind of a thing. So she's pretty traumatized from that. You know, alcohol, not something you're allowed to have in country. There's situations where people snuck it in somehow, got it mailed to them or whatever, but making it this public that you're intoxicated probably result in Article 15. So she'd probably get busted down after this. She doesn't have any kind of repercussions from this as far as an Article 15 or getting busted down for being drunk on a deployment. Like I said, people have done it. I've heard stories of people, you know, however ways they've smuggled alcohol onto a deployment and gotten, you know, drunk privately in their room secretly. But this is pretty public, so she would have probably gotten an Article 15 for being clearly wasted and intoxicated. So the Major, she gets woken up after having like this fantasy or dream or whatever about like a patient guy, by a FaceTime from her family. Again, internet connection's crappy. I remember my roommate constantly trying to FaceTime with his wife, and he used to drive me nuts because it was usually just the majority of the time, "Are you there? Can you see me? You're frozen. I can't see you." What, you know, there's just a common back and forth of that, and it got super annoying. I don't even understand why he kept trying to do so. But Iraq, anyways, could be a different story. Then maybe they have great internet connection here at this base in Afghanistan. But FaceTiming would be pretty difficult for the most part. Not impossible. Maybe if they have a great internet connection, but a little bit rare probably.
You hear the word sit? You heard it now. Captain.
So she gets called into this colonel's office to have a talk about how she's basically getting sent back to Mexico. She's kind of, you know, under that DACA kind of program type of thing, I think. But the thing that gets kind of unrealistic, not the whole DACA part or the getting, you know, removed from the military to go back to, you know, your country, but the part of her having direct interaction with this colonel. Typically it gets handled at a lower level. This would probably be handled by like the first sergeant, probably, maybe the platoon sergeant, and then maybe if it needs to go that high, then she probably would be escorted like with her platoon sergeant or maybe with the first sergeant to go see the colonel. This wouldn't be usually a common thing that often happens of a sergeant going one-on-one with a colonel for this type of thing. This is kind of like a disciplinary thing or something, you know, severe where she's going to be sent back to the United States to get, you know, deported back to Mexico. And that would probably be handled at the company level, the first sergeant, the platoon sergeant, that kind of a thing. Not just extremely at this. Not to say that sergeants don't work with colonels. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that for this type of scenario, this would probably be handled at a lower level, not like as extreme as they're kind of making this out to be with the sergeant reporting directly to this colonel.
Roll back.
Small little detail, little post office kind of thing. Cool little setup and everything. You see the APO, AE, that is how military addresses are done for deployments. So anybody who thinks they're talking to somebody that claims to be deployed and they try to give them an address that's just a local address, that's not how it works. So little scammer kind of heads up. They should be giving you an APO, AE, or something along those lines, some kind of APO type of address. But also as far as realism wise, I've never really seen this high speed of a kind of a post office kind of a thing. This is pretty cool and be a little extra work. Typically it just kind of gets handed down. They go down to the platoon and everything. Hey, this is all for first platoon. The platoon sergeant hands it off to the squad leaders for whoever's in that, and then the squad leaders kind of say, hey, I got some mail at the talk for you guys to pick up or whatever. This is pretty high speed little setup. Probably a little not as common from my experience, but you know, if they put the extra effort into making a little post office kind of thing like this, I'm sure you could probably do it. But a lot of common times I've seen it where it's done just a little bit more impromptu of just handing down a mail bag to the company and then divvying it out between the platoons and the squads.
Gotta take advantage of all the cultural and gastronomical delights that Afghanistan has to offer.
Are you sure this is gonna be okay?
As long as it doesn't get back to Holloway that Roback left to base, we should be fine.
Come on. Boys, be safe.
Mm-hmm.
Fortune favors the bold.
What's that mean?
Means play it cool. Tell the guards we're on the usual outreach mission bullshit and this little stunt of ours might just work out.
So they go and take this FLA, it's the medical ambulance there, off base by themselves, no security escort. Also, this is not an armored vehicle as well. This is the non-up armored version of the FLA. So a lot of things wrong with this situation. Never been in a situation where the guards will let you leave base without an armed escort. Usually you had like a vehicle limit. You know, I think both deployments, I think we had like a 3 or 4 vehicle limit, and they had to have at least 2 cruiser weapons, one at the front and one at the back of the convoy. So one vehicle by itself would not be allowed to leave the gate by itself. Also, the non-armored vehicle as a current thing. Now, during OAF1, sure, there wasn't very common where they were doing a lot of armored vehicles just yet. Some people just had sandbags on the floorboard, and that was armored vehicle, and sometimes need no doors on the side for OAF1. But later, as the deployments got on, it became more common to have up-armored vehicles. And so then it became, at some point in time, a requirement to leave the base. You had to be with an armored vehicle. You could leave base with an armored vehicle, without an armored vehicle. unarmored vehicles, they would still have those, but usually they were known as fob runners. So you're allowed to use them from like you're running around on the fob and everything like that on base. But if you were going to go outside the gate, you had to be with some crucive weapons. It had to be usually a vehicle minimum of 3 or 4 or something like that. And all the vehicles had to be up armored.
Stay in the ambulance.
Where am I gonna go?
So from here for a little ways, anyways, this is all just for drama, for the entertainment of the show, because none of this is going to be realistic. I mean, it could be, you know, if people went rogue and went off base to do the shady stuff that they're doing, kind of a thing. But there's not going to be really a lot of like realism or non-realism or whatever. It's all for entertainment purpose here. So we'll kind of move past their little mission that they're kind of doing right now.
We good?
I can't feel my legs.
So from here, he's testing the hashish to see if it's good, to make sure it's real and all that stuff for the little transaction they're doing. The 2 deployments I did in Iraq, I don't think we ever did any urinalysis on the deployment. I think it'd be too little inconvenient, so you could possibly get away with that and probably not come out hot with the piss test, but I'm sure if they probably wanted to put forth the effort, they probably could do urinalysis while on a deployment. I just don't remember ever doing one in my 2 deployments that I ever did.
Where the hell are we?
So another thing, like uniformity wise, if you're curious about a lot of that stuff, a lot of it is pretty realistic. I mean, the vest they have on looks pretty realistic. The assault pack, the backpack that they're wearing, the Kevlar helmet, it's even got their blood type on the side. They got the band. Petrocelli's even got the iPro. Normally you'd be probably wearing it, but that looks pretty realistic. The weapons look pretty realistic. They even got the MBG mounts on the front. So a lot of the uniform stuff is pretty realistic, other than the patch stuff that I kind of mentioned. But as far as the gear and a lot of stuff that they're using, looks pretty realistic as far as, you know, things that you would use in a combat zone in real army.
Not to mention the 10 pounds of hashish we got strapped to our backs.
Hashish.
Let's do this!
I signed that ambulance out under my name. They are gonna make me pay for it, aren't they?
Kid, on the slim chance we make it back to base alive, you're gonna make us all pay. Come on.
So the episode ends with them being stranded, and now I have to take it back. So that was kind of like my rundown as far as pointing out some things here and there. There might be some things I missed or whatever, but those are some key ones that I kind of noticed that I thought I'd point out to maybe people that are curious about, you know, what's realistic, what's not realistic. But like I said at the beginning of the video, it's probably not supposed to be realistic. You don't want a TV show or a movie or whatever to be 100% realistic unless it's something for historical purposes, like maybe Black Hawk Down or something. This is supposed to be like a drama / comedy kind of a thing or whatever. So you want to leave some kind of room in there for the entertainment value and everything. But, you know, just maybe if you have some curiosity, hopefully that kind of fills that curiosity as far as what things, you know, line up to how it really is in the Army and what's not realistic and all that kind of stuff. So if you enjoyed this video and you want to see me do episode 2, make sure to hit that thumbs up, leave some comments down below. What do you guys think about this series? What did you think about episode 1? They're now until what, episode 5 or 6 by now, unless you're seeing this video much later. But if you want to see me, you know, react to some more of them and kind of point out some things here and there, make sure to let me know, show the video some love, and maybe we'll do some more episodes. So thanks for watching. If you liked the video, like I said, hit that thumbs up. Check out some links down in the description, social media, website, all that kind of stuff. I'm ThatChrisChaos. I'll see you next time. See ya.